Tuesday morning, September 27th, Hurricane Ian made its first landfall in western Cuba as a Category 3 major hurricane with highest steady winds around 125 miles per hour. There was severe to disastrous damage to homes, hospitals, schools, infrastructure, and to agriculture. Several lives were lost. Crossing Cuba, Ian did not lose much strength. It was still a major hurricane exiting Cuba and entering the Gulf of Mexico. Florida had already been placed under a state of emergency for the anticipated impact. Evacuations were ordered.
Hurricane Ian is expected to impact this area with high winds and heavy rain. An evacuation of all mobile homes is recommended.
As the storm neared Florida, South Florida and the east coast of Florida also dealt with deteriorating conditions and then more than a dozen tornadoes, some of which were deadly. Wednesday, September 28, 2022, Hurricane Ian made landfall midday on the southwest Florida coast near Cayo Costa as a high Category 4 with wind of 150 miles per hour. That put it among the strongest hurricanes to make landfall in Florida and in the United States. The highest wind gust measured was 155 miles per hour, but it is impossible to directly measure the highest wind in a hurricane because weather instruments are not everywhere and because many instruments fail. Highest storm surge peaks along the coast were 12 to 15 feet. Barrier islands like Captiva, Pine, Sanibel, and Fort Myers Beach were hit hardest by the surging and rising water. The causeway and bridge to Sanibel Island was destroyed, stranding survivors. Widespread inland flooding plagued much of central Florida due to largest rainfall amounts of 15 to 20 inches, leading to record river levels. In the days that followed, runoff of rain carrying sediment, fertilizers, pesticides, gasoline, motor oil, and other pollutants could be seen on satellite entering the Gulf of Mexico, impacting marine ecosystems. Hurricane Ian caused over 2.5 million customers to lose electricity in Florida. Along with the power outages, storm survivors and some emergency responders and other support agencies dealt with a lack of safety and recovery information and the ability to communicate. In the 4 hardest hit Florida counties, 2/3 of cell service providers were out. Cable and wired phone companies had over 800,000 subscribers without service. The aftermath of the storm was difficult, with no power, no communication, and no basic necessities like clean water. By Sunday, October 2nd, 4 days after Ian's landfall in Florida, boil water notices remained in parts of 20 different counties. Thousands of people had to be evacuated from healthcare facilities and nursing homes. By October 5th, a week after the storm, 2,500 storm survivors had been rescued. Many homes were badly damaged and became uninhabitable. Cities and counties faced tremendous cleanup and repair. Rivers and streams were littered with debris. Floodwater stood for days in neighborhoods and communities, preventing travel while providing a habitat for mosquitoes to multiply. The immense damage and damage area required aid from state and federal agencies, along with assistance from volunteer organizations which provided food, resources, physical help, and even prayer. Cleanup and recovery would go on for weeks and months. After the landfall on the west coast of Florida, a state of emergency had already been declared for Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Ian turned northward to strike the central South Carolina coast as a hurricane early afternoon, Friday, September 30th, 2022. Even though Ian was a Category 1, the impact for the mid-Atlantic states was substantial. The steady onshore wind in North Carolina left 2 to 4 feet of storm surge flooding at the coast. It was even higher than that for the South Carolina coast. North Carolina and South Carolina rainfall was between 4 and 8 inches, peaking at over 11 inches on South Carolina's shoreline. Ian lost tropical storm status in North Carolina on Saturday, October 1st, but remained a rain and windstorm moving into Virginia. Nearly 500,000 homes and businesses lost electricity in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Estimates of Hurricane Ian damage costs from NOAA make Ian the most expensive hurricane to strike Florida, and the third most expensive hurricane to hit the United States, with over $112 billion in losses. Going beyond the dollar cost, the Florida Medical Examiners Commission counted at least 144 people killed by Hurricane Ian in Florida. For the destruction and death, misery, and mess that the hurricane caused, the name Ian was retired. I'm meteorologist Alan Seals.